On the news. It's back. The March for Life. Thousands making their way to the Supreme Court demanding an end to abortion.
Equality begins in the womb.
We have team coverage from D.C. to the diocese.
Parishioners in the Diocese of Brooklyn are putting their money where their hearts are, with the unborn. I'm Jessica Easthope with how these roses are helping in the fight for life.
They may not all be on the National Mall, but a new poll says a majority of Americans believe Roe v. Wade has got to go. Plus, a pro-abortion light show projecting this message onto the National Shrine. Now the D.C. Archbishop has a message for them. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now.
Ready to march?
The fight for the unborn underway in our nation's capital. Thousands marching to the Supreme Court, standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And many believe this could finally be the last March for Life. Right now, the Supreme Court is considering a case that could reverse Roe v. Wade. That's an outcome some pro-life veterans from the Diocese of Brooklyn have been fighting for nearly 50 years.
We have to speak for these little innocent babies that can't speak to themselves.
80-year-old Mary Ruane getting emotional while speaking with us from the bus driving down to D.C. The parishioner from St. Helens in Howard Beach traveled with others from the Diocese of Brooklyn to join the March for Life.
This has been a disaster now since 1973. There's been over 65 million abortions just in the United States. So we're wiping ourselves out. We're turning on ourselves.
That's why they march year after year. They say as Catholics, it's our responsibility to God.
I feel like we're walking with him on the road to Calvary. When we walk up to the Senate, I feel like he's there with us and we're helping him carry the cross.
Deacon John from Immaculate Heart of Mary in Windsor Terrace says it's an issue that divides the country, but also unites people of all faiths.
There's hundreds of thousands of people that are in this march, not all Catholics. There's Protestants, there's atheists, there's our Jewish brothers and sisters.
And this year, they're more optimistic since the Supreme Court could reverse Roe v. Wade. Sometime in the coming weeks, justices will decide in a case from Mississippi whether bans on abortion before a baby can survive outside the womb can be constitutional.
Well, we march until the day when we don't have to march anymore. Hopefully, we will not have to do this next year. Maybe Roe v. Wade will be overturned. We pray, we hope.
And they say they're in great spirits. They say it's a long day driving from Brooklyn to D.C., marching and then driving back. But they say it just goes to show how committed these parishioners are. And continuing now with our team coverage, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, John Lavenberg, is in the midst of the marchers. He joins us now. And John, I know there's a lot of people there at the National Mall. We all remember last year's march was mostly virtual. So many were saying this year the crowds could reach pre-pandemic levels. What are you seeing?
You know, Christine, the crowds here, there are thousands upon thousands of people here. I mean, behind me, a whole section of the National Mall here is completely jam-packed. I mean, it's cold out here, and thousands of people came from all over. I talked to people from the Midwest, the Northeast, the West Coast. They all came. Some flew in as early as the beginning of last week. So there's thousands of people here at the March for Life to support life today.
I was wondering if the cold was going to keep people away. You're looking a little frigid there. And we just heard from people in the Diocese of Brooklyn that went down to the march, and they say they're optimistic. They're hopeful that Roe v. Wade will be overturned, and this will be the last March for Life. Is that what you're hearing from people too?
You know, it's interesting, Christine. Everyone I've spoken to has said that they are hopeful, of course, that Roe v. Wade will be overturned come this summer by the Supreme Court. But as for what happens to the march after that, you know, their answers vary a little bit. Some people say that the marches then should move to the state and local level because that's what needs to happen after Roe is overturned. Others say that the march should continue because people should come out and it should be more celebratory, and that there's still a long fight ahead for the pro-life movement.
You know, when we chatted with Bishop Brennan earlier this week, he talked about how a lot of young people are leading the way in the pro-life movement. Have you noticed that today?
I have. have, and that's actually one of the things that struck me so much about being out here on the ground. It's, people have told me for days that there are going to be a lot of young people out here, that young people are really a key part of this movement, and it wasn't until I actually got out here that I really saw how integral they were. I mean, I would say most of the people I talked to were young people. Most of them are the ones that are leading their groups that came down here, whether it's different colleges. I spoke to someone that organized students from all of the Ivy League school, the Ivy League Students for Life. They all came down, different schools, colleges, high schools. I mean, it's a very student, young people driven event this year. Lots of young people, and they're very energized. And as you might be able to hear a little bit behind me, constant cheering, and it's a very energetic scene.
Yeah, it sounds so exciting. And one last thing I want to talk about is that a lot of people might think of this as a Catholic issue, but as we heard in the previous story, people from all faiths come out, even people who have no religion. Are you seeing that as well?
It is your scene. A lot of people that are here, it's not necessarily, like you said, something that's only religious, whether it's Catholic or Christian. There are people here that are just here to support life. From conception until natural death, that's what they believe, and that's what they believe is right. So, I mean, to say that this is just a religious movement is pretty off base for people to say that. I mean, there are people from all walks of life that are here, like I said, celebrating life and supporting life until conception, until natural death.
All right, John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thanks for keeping us informed, and stay warm down there.
Thank you, Christine.
New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan was out on the National Mall as well. He joined the march after praying with hundreds of young people at St. Patrick's Church in D.C.
We'll have Mass here, and then we go to the mall for some talks, and then we march up Capitol Hill in witness to the culture of life to protect the innocent baby in the womb, full protection of the law, a great civil rights and human rights crusade that we're involved in. Join us, will you, in prayer.
St. Patrick's Church was the first Catholic church established in the nation's capital. Brooklyn's Bishop Robert Brennan was also in D.C. this week. He led prayers for the protection of the unborn at a holy hour in the National Shrine. The holy hour directly followed Thursday night's annual Vigil for Life. Brooklyn's bishop sent out a rallying cry to the hundreds gathered to continue their efforts to cherish all life from conception to natural death.
Without the right to life, every other right collapses. It's like a house of cards. You are not noisemakers on the street, but following the lead of Jesus. You immerse yourselves. You immerse yourselves in the messiness of the world, engaging people in their need.
In an interview with Currents News before leaving for the march, Bishop Brennan said he continues to be impressed by all the young people fighting for life, but also the veterans who have been marching for decades. Pro-abortion protesters usually attend the annual march, but this year they took their opposition one step further. While the National Prayer Vigil was taking place inside the shrine on Thursday night, a small group known as Catholics for Choice projected pro-abortion messages onto the front of the basilica. The stunt prompted harsh criticism from Washington's Cardinal Wilton Gregory, who said the true voice of the church was only to be found within the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception last evening. Those whose antics projected words on the outside of the church building demonstrated by those pranks that they really are external to the church. As the debate over abortion rages on, a new survey shows 60% of Americans disagree with Roe v. Wade, the landmark ruling that made abortion legal in the United States. 44% thought the Supreme Court should leave abortion up to individual states, while 17% said the court should make abortion illegal outright. The poll also found that 55% of respondents identified as pro-choice and 40% identified as pro-life. As we've reported, the Supreme Court is set to rule on two controversial cases later this year that could affect the fate of Roe. And now to the fight for life in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Parishioners at Holy Family Church in Queens are not letting the pandemic stop them from standing with the unborn. Instead, their love is on full display. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Fresh Meadows.
It's an outpouring of love for life. 200 red roses displayed in front of the altar at Holy Family Church in Fresh Meadows is how these parishioners are showing they stand with the unborn.
We didn't want this anniversary to pass by and us doing nothing. We need to do something. And so our way of doing this is through prayer, through fasting, and through almsgiving.
For the first time, Holy Family couldn't send its usual group down to Washington to march. So instead, parishioners are remarking the anniversary of Roe v. Wade with a day of fasting and prayer for the protection of the unborn. They raised money, each rose a donation to pro-life organization Bridge to Life.
Regardless of what's going on politically, for us it's about the women and about the babies, and just providing as much support to them as we possibly can.
Stephanie Sapola is a board member of Bridge to Life and a parishioner at Holy Family. She says a recent New York Times investigation showing some prenatal screenings that could lead women toward abortion are wrong 85% of the time is on the organization's radar.
We want to make sure that they're never considering abortion because they feel like that's their only choice.
Though medicine and politics may be at the core of the cause, in recent years the pro-life movement has been reinvigorated, seeing a surge of young people taking a stance. St. John's University employees Stacy Varghese and Sylvia Jagoda came to Mass Friday to pray for their colleague who's expecting her baby any day now.
I think that it's really important in this day and age to honor life and the sanctity of life.
It's really seeing the young people enthusiastic about life. And I think that brings a message of hope to everyone.
Through its first Rose for Life campaign, Holy Family will be donating more than $1,000 to Bridge for Life. In Fresh Meadows, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
If you or someone you know needs help from Bridge to Life, please call 718-463-1810 and explain the situation. If you'd just like to make a donation, you can visit thebridgetolife.org. Make sure you stay with Currents News and the tablet for all of your March for Life coverage from the diocese to D.C. And be sure to pick up the paper next week for exclusive articles you'll only see in the tablet. And let's take a look at some stories making headlines right now. The Supreme Court rejected another attempt to block Texas's 6-week abortion ban. After meeting in Geneva, top U.S. and Russian envoys agreed to keep diplomacy alive, but tensions are continuing to rise in and around Ukraine. Republicans are proposing to establish police forces to hunt for election crimes. And New York's governor is speeding up the deployment of mental health workers to New York City in the wake of a fatal subway shove in Times Square. Coming up, more on subway safety. It's on the minds of New Yorkers. They want campaign promises filled.
We're being targeted, and so this just hits so close to home. Just another death, another passing.
Hundreds gather in Times Square demanding action. Plus, a fiery explosion in the Bronx left several families homeless, but a local church opened its doors to those in need. And one kid in California joins an elite club of students. His trick to getting a perfect SAT score. A Catholic church has had its doors wide open all this week, helping displaced parishioners after an explosion and building collapse in the Longwood section of the Bronx. St. Athanasius is just feet from the gas leak that sent people running for their lives. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story.
Firefighters, emergency crews, and the buildings department investigating the cause of this massive explosion. Officials say someone called 911 saying they smelled gas just moments before the home shot up in flames. The people living on this side of the block have been displaced and relocated by the Red Cross, and what remains of the home now is in a pile.
We actually had the neighbor's door in front of our house.
A blast so powerful it blew a front door and shattered glass across the street into Nelson Roman's front yard.
It was just a boom. It was a boom. The house shook, and then it's like, what happened?
Nelson is still in shock over Tuesday's explosion that happened in the home attached to his brother's. He's thankful he was at work at the time. 10 families were forced out of their homes by the explosion. Shocking body camera footage shows police officers running into the destroyed building to rescue a woman trapped under furniture, her home in ruins.
The 5 officers that were sent to the hospital because of smoke inhalation, they're heroes. They save lives.
Councilman Rafael Salamanca Jr. says those officers have since been released from the hospital, and now the community is looking to another hero, to help them through this recovery.
When tragedies hit, we always depend on faith-based organizations to step up. And that's exactly what St. Athanasius Church did. The doors never closed.
All of the families displaced were parishioners of St. Athanasius.
This is one called St. Athanasius Church.
Juan Sotomayor, who works at the church, remembers back to the 70s when the Bronx was burning. Negligent landlords were setting their properties on fire to collect insurance money, and St. Athanasius remained a symbol of hope.
The church was pretty much the only building that stood, and so therefore has always been a beacon. Again, history repeated itself.
Though the blast made his home tremble, Nelson says his faith is not shaken.
We just look for God, for peace, for love, and just, the strength to endure.
Emergency management crews are working with those 10 families to see if they can get back into their homes and salvage any belongings before 4 buildings here on Fox Street are completely demolished. One person remains in critical condition. In the Longwood section of the Bronx, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
You can help those families without a home. Just visit archny.org to donate directly to Catholic charities. The sounds of the subway reserved now for the brave or for those who board it out of necessity alone. Either way, riders are on edge. And so is New York City's mayor. He says even he feels unsafe on the rails. That's a 180 to his previous comments on the subway subject, saying that if the mayor has swagger, so will the city. But New Yorkers are questioning if swagger is enough. Currents News' Jessica Easthope says the real riders are demanding an entire overhaul.
As New York attempts to recover from COVID-19, riders say the subway system is still sick.
It's been disturbing. Just in the past week, various people breaking the law. One guy was lighting things on fire.
People pushing people being nervous and scared.
Mayor Eric Adams was elected, vowing to make New York safer. Now he and Governor Kathy Hochul are working their way up, starting with the underground transit system many say is beyond repair.
It's going to take a ton of money and organization, and I don't see it.
The plan, tackle homelessness with the help of trained social workers and add more cops to, quote, reimagine the NYPD's coverage of the subways.
Like to see police a little more dispersed, walking around, not on their telephones.
But riders say they're not imagining the risk to their safety. Mayor Adams now says he feels unsafe only after he was criticized for saying it's only the perception of fear that have people scared to get on the train.
I haven't seen him taking the train with me. It's basically become, the world's largest mobile homeless rescue operation.
He sees what's going on, and he could speak up for himself, but not for everybody else.
Rosie Fernandez says she rides the subway terrified she'll be next. She came out Tuesday to attend a candlelight vigil for Michelle Go, who was pushed by a homeless man in front of a moving R train to her death Saturday.
Seeing homeless more than ever. Inside the train is very dangerous.
2 years ago, the pandemic brought ridership to a screeching halt, and it's only reached 56% of pre-pandemic levels. But still, many agree. One sound that's being ignored, a cry for help by New York City's homeless.
In a sense, they're asking for help, but still being annoyed.
And I hope they get the help that they need, because it's like a cry out, but I am worried.
The new plan to improve safety is expected to be rolled out immediately. In the meantime, riders say they're waiting and hope Mayor Adams' promises don't go off the rails. In Manhattan, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
More now on that vigil in honor of Michelle Go. Hundreds gathered in Times Square Tuesday night holding flowers, candles, and signs denouncing anti-Asian violence. Elected officials joined Go's family, friends, and coworkers in Father Duffy Square, honoring the 40-year-old California native who was pushed in front of an oncoming train. And while crimes against Asians have gone up in the city, police have not deemed this latest subway shove a hate crime. But some New Yorkers think otherwise.
We're being targeted, and so this just hits so close to home. Just another death, another passing. It's painful.
Could have been me, could have been my friend. You have no idea who it's coming from. You have no idea if there's a specific time of day that it's going to be worse than another. So there's no parameters around which you can kind of set yourself up for safety.
The suspect, a 61-year-old man, is being held without bail. He's due back in court late next month and faces a single count of second-degree murder in Go's death. A mental fitness exam was ordered for the suspect. Authorities say he was on parole for a prior felony conviction at the time of the attack. Meanwhile, the MTA is now looking at a safety option that's being used in cities around the world. Platform barrier doors can be seen in major transit hubs like Paris and Hong Kong. And exactly as their name implies, they create a barrier between the platform and the tracks, preventing people from falling or being pushed. However, some city transit leaders are pushing back against the idea, saying it would be a complicated and expensive safety solution costing billions. Still to come on Currents News, he's a 1%er, but not quite how you think.
I see a 1600 on my SAT score, but there were plenty of failures that came before that.
The perfect score, but according to his parents, he's not exactly the perfect child. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Imagine this, getting a perfect SAT score. Well, that's a reality for one student from California who can now go to any college he wants. But his parents say he's really not that perfect. What teenager could be? Brittany Hope has the story.
Apurv Mishra is a senior at Davis Senior High School. The 17-year-old has his own typical teenage imperfections.
Not clean right now.
Including a disheveled room.
This is my bed. It's not set right now because I was, again, late for school.
And a problem getting out of it.
Every day I have to fight with him because he is not getting up on time.
His chemistry teacher says he's been caught falling asleep in class.
He's one that maybe doesn't get the top scores, interestingly enough.
But his parents have plenty of room for forgiveness, because how could a teenager be perfect?
In the end, I see a 1600 on my SAT score, but there were plenty of failures that came before that, right?
You heard that right. Apurv got a perfect score on his SAT exam.
This is my total score, which is a 1600, and the percentile that it lands me in, it's 99 percentile.
Every single question answered correctly. The College Board, which administers the exam, says only a fraction of a percentage of test takers achieve this.
Once you sat in the chair, was there a question or a section that you were a little bit nervous for?
The first section, for sure. The reading sections, they're reading these long passages, and then they ask you at some point in time, like, what was the meaning of the intro paragraph? Or what did the author want to convey in this section? And you're like, well, I don't know.
Apurv said he prepared whenever he had free time.
When I did the SAT, I was actually studying right here.
But what free time? He's vice captain of the robotics team, student body president, and
recently I was able to take up like a job as a software engineering intern.
All that and a perfect SAT score? I think that forgives the messy bed.
I have seen him. I was not very happy the way he was preparing for this exam, and according to me, he was not giving enough time.
His parents say they are so proud of their son.
You can be definitely keeping a track of their progress, but at the same time, they deserve your love and trust.
Again, that was Brittany Hope reporting. And those smarts run in the family. His older brother is a junior at Harvard. And he says as long as he's taller than his little brother, he wins. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.